facilitate the rest of the afternoon. By the way, that was planned for me to do that before we knew we were going to be ready to launch the book. I quite like that, the book, here today. And let me say, Clive, to you and to the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, congratulations for putting on this this brilliant event, because I sense through the work that many of us are doing that we are at a time of real change, and that is that many more people are realizing that creating the ultimate wealth and prosperity in our country is going to be down to making things, creating things, innovating, exporting things, and ultimately, as you said, David Pryor, it has to be about generating productivity, because only if we do that can we really raise living standards and raise wages. So I think it's a very timely conference, and I'm really looking forward to the discussions this afternoon and tomorrow. What I'm particularly looking forward to this afternoon is the fact that we've got such an international perspective. And I do think very often we all get so busy with what we're doing in our own factories, with our own supply chains, and what we're doing and what's happening in our own countries. And I think it's great that today we've got such brilliant speakers that are joining us on the stage from Sweden, from Mexico, from Germany, so that we can have a bit of a comparison and a bit of a debate about how some of this work is taking place. And we'll start with that in a moment. But before I do that, I do want to say to you, Lord Pryor, a special thank you for the support you have given, and indeed your department has given, for us to be able to carry out this work. And I'm delighted that you've just said that it will form a key part of the industrial strategy and the white paper that we hope to see later on this year. That's really extremely motivating for all of the people who have worked on this review, and indeed, hopefully, for our future as manufacturers here in the UK. But let's get into the agenda. We're going to come back to the book, by the way, so we're going to have a bit of a chat about this review a little bit later on. But before we do that, let me now pass over to our first international speaker, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Markus Hess. Markus is Deputy Director of Industrial Policy for the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs, so sits basically in the same as our Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and has been a key architect in that department with regarding to the fourth industrial revolution. Of course, we all know that it was Germany who coined the phrase Industry 4.0. And Markus is also the key representative of Germany on the G20 presidency, which, as you know, Germany currently holds, and Markus represents Germany in this space of digital manufacturing and Industry 4.0 on that. And as you may have heard from the last G20 meeting, the G20 have reached an agreement and a roadmap on this journey of digitalisation and the fourth industrial revolution. So without further ado, Markus, I hand over to you and look forward to some insights from you. Thank you very much, Markus.
Thank you very much indeed. I've never heard such beautiful words now weighing on my shoulders. But it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be here. It's a nice venue. I had the chance to see the workshop. I'm totally impressed of what I've seen, and well, I think you're very well underway. I want to give you in the next couple of minutes some, well, kind of flashlights, what we are doing in Germany in terms of Industry 4.0, and when we look at industry at the center of the policy for a second at least, we see that it's as the sun surrounded by some kind of satellites that are of crucial importance to industry and prosperity of industry. I just want to tip lightly on some of the issues related to that. The demographic change was mentioned, and some of what I'm going to say right now would sound in your ears because Lord Pryor has mentioned the core elements already. And just to give you an impression what holds true for Germany, we have something in common on a European level with Greece and Italy. We're the oldest, and we're getting older. And 21% of our population is older than 64 at the moment. And forecasts say that our labor market in 2030 will be short of 3 million employees. 3 million for a kind of industry society as Germany is very, very important. And we have to deal with that. The other satellite is decarbonization. Decarbonization is easily said, but in practice it's extremely difficult to put in place. If you look at the Paris Climate Agreement and what comes after that or with this, you get a glance of what is our task. And I'm not touching on coal plants and energy plants running on coal or something even worse. And sometimes you have political insecurities that trump the others. And so we have to tackle all these problems, and we have to deal with all the impacts that come with that, and that form part of our German industrial policy. The framework, the share in GDP is more than 22%, whereas in the US, for instance, it's 12, or France and the UK, something around 15. Those figures doesn't say anything if you don't look at the outcome and the perspective of the industry. But it means we are heavily dependent on the prosperity of our industrial sector. Mechanical engineering and the electrical industry play a key role in our industry and for the digital transformation as a whole, because what we have to realize in industry and in the day-to-day policy making is that in former times we had a transformational process that affected sectors, or 2 or 3, but not every sector of every part of the industrial daily business. So we have a cross-cutting transformational process we call the Industrial Revolution, or in Germany, Industry 4.0. So a man's grasp should extend the reach of his arm. We claim to be a leading market for Industry 4.0 applications, and we claim to be a leading provider of Industry 4.0 solutions. And why do we do that? Because we have 3 strands of important issues we have to look at. This is we believe that there are benefits for enterprises and societies. In economic terms, the individual products at the cost of mass production, the increased productivity and flexibility, minimize time to market. Value-generating processes are optimized to customer demand in real time. It's widely quoted that the 3D, for example, 3D print process would help, or at least facilitate, the idea of reshoring manufacturing processes to where they went from. In terms of Germany, we have a, say, sports shoe manufacturer with several stripes who is planning to have a 3D print machine in the premium shops. They want to scatter all over the country. And you go there as a customer, And in former days, which is 2 or 3 years ago, you said, I want to take this typical shoe, and they took your footprint to make it to measurement. And it took roughly 6 to 8 weeks to make that shoe. And with the new 3D printing, you decide what design you want to have, you decide what the shoe should look like, and then you get your measurements taken, and 2 hours later you walk out this shop with your new shoes. And this is a kind of, well, revolution, at least for those affected, involved so far in the production process. We have environmental benefits to look at. It's energy and resource efficiency is something that is extremely important, wastewater management, urban mining. We think that at the top it could save up to 50%. So we have, with a circular economy, the chance to increase our sustainability, and we want at least to have the chance to get clean production back to the city centers, the the urban environment. And the third pillar is that we think social benefits are there or will be there as well. Because we have smart assistant systems to support employees, we have better work, which means in Germany work-life balance. We have to catch up. We are there almost at dinosaur stadium concerning work-life balance, but it improves. We have the colleagues from Sweden who are the benchmark, so to say. Lord Pryor mentioned earlier on that the Society 4.0 brand, so to say, from Japan involves this pillar more than we do with our Industry 4.0, but on the other hand, it's true that we come from a more engineer process-oriented source, and therefore think that those two concepts could stand side by side. The next one is not to memorize. I just want to show you how we try to have a kind of governance in place. How do we do that? We have 3 pillars in the roof. The left pillar are the experts. People say just leave out all the other pillars and the roof and let them do their work. But that's simply not possible, at least not in Germany. So therefore we have the second pillar, which is the political steering process. And the third pillar, these are associates to the process and to council expertise. On top is the political steering roof, so to speak, with the first liners from politics and companies, and they assess that all others below the roof do their work properly. We've established a platform Industry 4.0. We have our core business there is a reference architectural model, which means we should strive to to approach the issue of standardization of Industry 4.0 in a structured manner. It ensures that all participants involved in Industry 4.0 standards understand each other. This is to avoid loss in translation. I mean, you create data, you are good in machinery, but then after that, what happens? And our platform, I've forgotten to mention this, is important, works pre-competitive. All the companies combine on that platform work there pro bono and pre-competitive, which means they search for standards, they can all apply later on, and then start the competition. Then we have this platform translates into a work in different work groups. You have the law impact, intellectual property rights problems, you have workforce and labor rights problems. You solve them or try to address them in those working groups. And afterwards, you have the question of how to deal with the outcome. And so we found private associations, the Standardization Council and Labs Network Industry. The Standardization Council aims to initiate standards for digital production in Germany and to coordinate these nationally and promote them internationally. But the labs network industry is also interesting because it's a network of test beds where Industry 4.0 solutions can be tested before going into its own production line, something we've seen in the workshop in the other building. To me, this all seems to be a little bit like Parship 4.0. But they understand themselves as bringing together the ones from the SMEs with the idea and the test beds, and the third company, the second company to come together, to combine, to join forces, and to have a chance to put a product to the market. This Platform Industry 4.0 approach is part of a wide range of measurements we take. You see competence centers, you see our chambers of industry and commerce, you see the federal ministries, the regional projects and clusters, and so on and so forth. So the main reason for that we have such a wide variety of possible measures is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to the questions. And the second thing is extremely simple to say. Germany is highly dependent on its SMEs and their success, because 3 million out of 3.5 million companies in Germany are SMEs. And as I've mentioned at the start, if you have a cross-cutting transformational process, as we have, you can get some troubled nights thinking about what digitalization might mean as a consequence to all of those SMEs if they don't realize that that is the future they have to cope with. Just to illustrate that, although 75% of SME CEOs in Germany tell us that they have a digitization strategy, it's roughly 40% of them are applying it. And 40% are on their way, they tell us. And 20% have no strategy at all and are refusing to even think about it. So what we need is to convince the 20% and speed up the process in the second 40% of SMEs, because it's vital to them and it's vital to us. Complementary to the national efforts, we have an internationalization strategy, because global, open and interoperable standards are of fundamental importance for the industry. Only those companies who can adequately product critical systems and data will be ready to get connected by the industrial internet to exchange data. The global Internet of Things will only work by internationally standardized collateral and interoperable solutions, which for us is in part something new, because if you look at some companies, in particular those hidden champions, we have a lot of them in Germany, who tell us, well, I've developed something good, I'm top 5 in the world market. I don't care how the future standards may be, because I have something to offer which, at least to up to date, is highly demanded by customers. Those we have to convince as well that the future, even for their business as a champion in their class, is that international standards will be part of their future life and that they have to cope with that as well. So we come to the international cooperation we, from the federal ministry and the federal level, have to have an eye on. We have chosen to get into a kind of discussion and mutual exchange with a variety of states around the globe, and we try to find common ground for future, well, let's say politics or developments in that area. And we've negotiated some MOUs with those from the US Industrial Internet Consortium to China. It was the first MOU we had. And all those MOUs just show one thing. It's extremely important to find the mutually beneficial common ground. And this is not an easy task, but if you go back to the idea that the standards of the future are standards that are valid internationally. It's extremely important to go international. This leads to the German G20 presidency. Now the wording becomes more abstract. The people involved in that process, in particular in Europe, they are familiar with every aspect of this. But if you come to the G20 level, you learn one thing, that to a lot of countries this is not the case. You have to find ways to exchange information, basic information, and to come to a common understanding that is the basis for future discussions. And therefore we brought for the first time together the digital ministers to a conference where the key messages they found sound to our ears more familiar than one should have thought before. It offers the opportunity for true added value in production. Even that was under discussion during this conference. Is that really true? Just food for thought. And the last aspect is that international cooperation is a key success factor, and there is nothing to add to that. So therefore, thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Markus. And Markus is going to be on a panel with me later on, so we'll have a bit of a chance to discuss, and you will have a chance to ask some questions also. And there'll be one question I know we'll be dying to ask you, so I'll do it when we get onto our panel, which is, why wasn't Britain on that list of collaboration partners?
Also part of the EU.
Ah, right. I knew it was going to. I knew there was going to be some Brexit answer there somewhere, but anyway, I'm sure we'll have a further debate about that. But let's move on now to our next contributor. So that's how it works in Germany.